everyone. I'm back to answer a question from Philip Cooper. He says, there are positive and negative aspects to being autistic. What would you say about autism-related problems that are inherently negative? In the most extreme cases, being unable to talk, socialize, or do anything without a carer within arm's reach, 24 hours a day, for a person's whole life. Do these things not make autism a condition or disability? So this is a very good points to bring up, Philip. So, first time I will say autism is a condition. Everything is a condition. Everything that you're in, just like how people say everything is chemicals. Oh no, chemicals. No, everything is chemicals. I'm chemicals. This scarf is chemicals. Everything is chemicals. Everything is a condition. I am in the condition of being female. I am in the condition of being European Native American. I am in the condition of being autistic, so there's nothing shameful or weird about being in a condition. Everything is. So, as far as disability goes, I did say in my last video that I do not consider autism to be inherently a disability in and of itself. Now, today I'm going to be discussing how autism can be classified as a disability in the way that it affects people today, and why that still does not make it inherently a disability. So, when he says there are positive and negative aspects to being autistic, I would say that there are positive and negative aspects to being anything. Whatever type of person you are, whatever parts of your life are positive or negative, the reason that there is any negativity to it at all is because we live in a fallen world. So because there's sin in the world and nothing's perfect anymore, then there are negative and positive aspects to everything. So yes, there are negative aspects to being autistic, but that is not inherent to autism itself. It is inherent to autism's presentation in our current world because of its fallen state. So what would I say about autism-related problems that are inherently negative? Okay, they are problems, the problems are inherently negative, and they are related to autism, autism-related problems. They are not inherent to the autism, but they are associated with it and are inherently negative. They are only associated with it because of the fallen state of the world. So, in the most extreme cases, he says, being unable to talk. Well, let's address that one. So, when a person is unable to talk, even among Aulistics or neurotypicals, when they can be put under extreme stress, they can actually go nonverbal. Now, it does not happen as often because the stress has to be way more immense. So, why is it that autistics go nonverbal way more often and some of them never develop speech? Well, there's the intense world theory, which if you haven't heard of that, it means that autistic people experience basically everything in our world in a more intense way, and that's why we react in the way we do, where we're always like, oh, that's too loud, oh, that's too bright, oh, I need to regulate, and we're just like, wait, you're giving me too much information, I can't pick up on all of your nuances and metaphors, it's too much. And, you know, we feel so much empathy that we shut down, we close it out. The intense world theory, I think so that's why a lot of times we're stressed. That's why most autistic people develop anxiety, depression, or many kinds of mental illnesses. That's why so many autistic people have comorbidities, which I don't really think that they are comorbid with autism, because I don't think autism is something you have as much as something you are. But, you know, as they say, like, if you have mental illnesses and you're autistic, more autistic people are mentally ill because we're so stressed. So why are we more sensitive? Well, God made different types of people. He made different types of ethnicities, genders, preferences, opinions, all sorts of different worldviews, and he also made different neurotypes. He made people whose brains think differently. And the way that autistic people perceive the world, God created it so that the way we perceive it is in a particular way. And in the fallen state, I believe we are more sensitive to the effects of the fall in a different way. So they affect us more because we inherently, as we go throughout our day, we're in the minority, So neurotypical and autistic people, they're going through the world, it's built for them. Not entirely, because it is in a fallen state, and so they do experience the effects of that, all negative aspects of their lives. But they have a lot of fewer problems than autistic people have to deal with. And, of course, I'm speaking generally. Of course, there are some autistic people who are in very awful crisis situations that I, as an autistic person, am not facing and will never face. But, in general terms, more autistic people, percentage-wise, have it rougher than the majority of autistic people, because they perceive the world in a way that's more comfortable for them. They're in the majority. We, because of intense world theory, we experience the effects of the fall more obviously. We always, as we're going throughout our day, we're sensing something is wrong, something is wrong, something is wrong. So there's the medical model of disability, where it's, oh, there's something wrong with you, we need to fix. The social model of disability, where there's something wrong with society that needs to accommodate you and your differences. And then there's what I call the spiritual model of disability, which is you are inherently more sensitive to the wrongs in society. So there's nothing wrong with you, but it is inherent to you that you're sensing something is wrong with society because of the spiritual state of the world. So, and of course, autistic people feel this more too, but since they're in the majority, they've been able to alleviate most of those effects to make themselves feel more comfortable. And this isn't to blame autistic people. If autistics were in the majority, we would do the same thing. But that's why we have to advocate for more awareness and acceptance of autism and autistic people, so that we can help autistic people not to be so devastated by the fall that they're unable to find joy in their lives or purpose and fulfillment and even pursue Jesus Christ. Because if they want to actually have a fulfilling relationship with Him, they can't constantly be debilitated by the world, just, overwhelmed, like the Holy Spirit needs to come set us free. But in order to do that, we need some fellowship from human beings. So that's why we need neurotypical autistic acceptance of autistic people and awareness of our differences in how we think in the world. So we are more aware of the fact that things are no longer safe like they were in the garden. Things are no longer peaceful. It's loud, it's noisy, it's people fighting against each other. That's why autistic people have such a strong sense of justice. We're like, oh no, that's wrong. We have to do something about it. We're sensitive to that something is wrong. And this is not to say that autistic people are more righteous than neurotypicals in any way, because God knows autistic people sin just as much as autistic people do. But we are very, very conscious of the fact that something is wrong. So moving on to, sorry, it's just kind of all over the place, but someone who's unable to talk. It could be because they're experiencing that overwhelming, something's wrong, I'm so stressed, and they're rendered nonverbal. This has happened to me before. It actually happened to me earlier this week. I was rendered nonverbal, and I had to use a text-to-speech app on my phone, which I thank God for that I have that kind of technology. But so it can happen to neurotypical people under immense stress, but autistic people are under stress more. That's why more autistic people are mentally ill. That's why more autistic people go nonverbal. And so since we're rendered in that way, we won't develop it. And if we never develop speech, it's either because we're so stressed out by the state of the world that we can't focus on it, or it's so sensorily overwhelming because we've already exhausted all of our senses on the too loud, too strong world around us, where everything is too much. We've already exhausted all that, and we don't have enough left to use on words, because it's a very, very tactile sensory process to speak. You feel all the words, you're feeling the vibrations and the sound, and your teeth and lips and tongue all moving together. You can feel it. It's very tactile. So sometimes people go nonverbal because it's too much sensation. And I've had that happen to me too, although not as frequently. So, a carer within arm's reach. People will have a carer typically if they are physically or intellectually disabled. Now, autism is not a physical disability. It does not stop you from being able to move yourself. Autism doesn't immobilize your arms or your legs or something like that. Autistic people can be physically disabled. There are autistic people who use wheelchairs, or autistic people who don't have arms, stuff like that. And so they might need a carer. There are autistic people who are so sensorily overwhelmed by the state of the world that autism is a disability for them because of the state of the world. So they're so sensorily overwhelmed by everything else, so overwhelmed by the state of the world, that they're unable to have any executive function left for hygiene, for safety, for caring for themselves. And every autistic person, as well as autistic people, have different lives. So an autistic person who is unable to ever dress herself and ever use the bathroom by herself, unlike me, I usually am able to do that myself, she probably has had completely different experiences from me and doesn't know how to express herself. She doesn't have that connection. So since everyone's experiences are different, people are going to respond differently to that level of stress. We all have different levels of resilience, and even with intellectual, autistic people can have average to high IQs, but we can also, and by the way, IQ, I'm using that loosely. I don't mean in the actual function of the test, because it's run in a pretty ableist way that it's not always accurate, but anyway, having actual levels of intelligence. We can be of average intelligence or very high intelligence, but we can also have intellectual disability. We can have a low intelligence, and this is the case for autistic, neurotypical people, and autistic people. We can have intellectual disability. And if someone has intellectual disability, then they're going to need someone to help them. And there's nothing shameful about that. I mean, that's why we look out for each other. Most of the disabilities that autistic people face are also part of neurotypicals' lives, but they're filled up by other things. They have a lot more support from their environment, and we don't have that support, because since we don't have the understanding from people around us of the way that we socialize and the way that we perceive the world, there's that disconnect. We're not getting the proper support. People are trying to support us, but it's not getting across because there's this disconnect of neurotype. I don't understand what you're expressing because you're using too many metaphors, and you don't understand what I'm expressing because it's too literal and autistic. And it's just a problem with society. So people with intellectual disability will need someone to look after them, and autistic people without intellectual disability still have a lot of support systems going down, which is why the label high functioning is not actually useful, because it causes people to say, oh, they don't really need help, and it leaves us without any support. And really all of those deficits are present in neurotypicals when they don't have that support. But in heaven and in paradise in Eden, before the fall, there was all of that support coming right from God, so there was no disability. When sin came in, it caused that disconnect from all people. The disconnect of relationships, disconnect of understanding, then there became physical illnesses. And since autistic people are so sensitive to, and like our neurotype is so sensitive to the effects of the fall, Satan goes, aha, I got you, and he'll go at that with fear and anxiety and depression, because those are tools that he uses against anyone. And he's like, oh, easy target, because she's not getting the right level of support that she needs, that all humans need. So autistic people, we have the same needs as neurotypicals. We're just not having our same needs fulfilled, because the world's fallen, so we're not having it completely filled by the presence of God, and we're not having it filled by one another. So I hope that answers your question. See ya.